Hello and welcome to the Football Hipsters podcast. I am your host, Kris, and in the absence of our European football brother, we have another special for you. Tonight we're turning our attention, to the EFL for a kind of half-season roundup. English Football League to our foreign cousins, and I have to, of course, have the main man when it comes to Championship action on board. So it's good evening to Mr. Ross Bramble. Good evening, Ross.
Good evening to you, sir.
And I've also got along for the ride, resident Brighton fan and all-round good guy. It's new man, Mr. Josh Daw. Evening, Josh.
Good evening, Kris.
Right, we will waste no time, gentlemen, because we've got a lot to get through in a short space of time. A reminder, if you don't already, you can follow us at the FH podcast, and usually we do an English breakfast show once a week and a European football show once a week. But this, as we say, is a special, and let's dive straight in. We're going to start with the Championship, gentlemen, because we are recording this in early January for those listening in delay. So we've got kind of the halfway stage. Most of the teams in the Championship have now played 25 games. It is a 24-team league, so that's almost halfway in between. So let's start at the top, work our way down. Who better to start with than Josh, because we find Brighton Hove Albion at the top of the Championship, at the summit, if you will. On a bit of a decent run of form right now, aren't they? What's your thoughts, having been down to see them on a number of occasions at the Amex and a bit of close follower? Is this your year?
I think this is a position that we didn't expect to necessarily be in come January. There are a lot bigger teams than Brighton and Hove Albion in this league, but we've taken full advantage of everybody else's misgivings, and we're looking very comfortable at the summit, playing very good football with some very shrewd signings made when we just missed out last season in getting promoted to the Premier League, and with Glenn Murray up front knocking in the goals and Anthony Knockaert supplying. It's looking a very, very good season at the moment, and with a game in hand on everybody behind us, it's looking very fruitful.
And as we mentioned in our recent English Breakfast recording, we are the official fan club of Tony K, Mr. Knockaert. So let's what we'll do with all the clubs really that we focus on tonight, we'll pick out a couple of outstanding individuals. So I'm assuming Mr. Knockaert is high on your list. So do you want to sort of wax lyrical about him, and then I might pick on Ross and see if he's got a couple to look out for as well.
Yeah, so it's almost a year or so to the day that we brought in Anthony Knockaert, and he's been an absolute revelation since he's come in, just adding flair and dynamism to the attacking front line for Brighton. And yeah, he's just taken Brighton to that next level. It was what we've been missing for a couple of seasons. I also have to give a good shout out to Lewis Dunk, who I wasn't the greatest fan of him, but since he's lost an experienced centre-half next to him in Gordon Greer, who's been walking him through games, he appears to have taken up that mantle and leading the team, and he looks a lot more mature. He used to be prone to the odd silly yellow card, silly foul here or there, and he looks to have taken that out of his game with some solid mature performances, and with a conceding only 15 goals this season just shows how important he is to the team.
Yeah, I think, as you say, Dunk has been one of the people that a lot of teams are after in the Championship, and indeed at higher level. Ross, who's impressed you in this Brighton side? I think you're a particular fan of one Solly March. And maybe just give your sort of thoughts on how they've developed this season, because Chris Hughton has quietly done a very, very good job, hasn't he, in a couple of seasons now with Brighton?
Yeah, he's he's arguably been the manager of the season in the Championship for this season and last, realistically speaking, because of how well he's done with Brighton. I think when people saw him go in there originally, we thought he'd do a good job, but I don't think we saw him doing as well as he's gone on to do. And I've said a couple of times so far this season that I thought Norwich would be the team that would beat Newcastle to the title. Obviously, Norwich have now fallen away. Brighton have taken up that mantle. And as of right now, I have absolutely no doubt that Brighton are my favourites for the league title. I think they're in a fantastic position, and that Championship nous that Newcastle don't have, I think, is such a really, really key part of this title run. In terms of players I'd like to point out from the Brighton side, I think Gaetan Bong is a very, very good fullback who doesn't always get a lot of the praise because fullbacks generally don't. Lewis Dunk is obviously another big one, but I do have such a little soft spot for Solly March. I so want him at Southampton. We've been scouting him for years, but we never seem to pull the trigger on it because Brighton have been rejecting bids. Solly March has said at one point he wanted to stay with Brighton for another year, then he got injured, and now he's 22 years old, coming back to fitness, and we still haven't made a move for him. So I'm a massive fan of Solly March, and I think he'll be a really, really big part of Brighton's team if they do go up, and I think a lot of people will start to realise how good a young player he is as well.
Yeah, well said. And I'm going to ask you both, particularly this for the Championship, maybe less so for Leagues 1 and 2, but for the Championship, I'm going to ask you for a mark out of 10 for every club that we focus on in this podcast. So Brighton, out of 10 so far this season. Josh, what are you giving them?
Can I give them a 12?
No.
Okay, it'll be 10. Full marks at the moment.
Like it. Ross, same for you or a bit lower?
I'm going to go 9. 10 if they win it, but for now 9.
Fair enough. Diplomatic, I like it. Okay, and well, obviously Brighton at the top of the tree. They are top from the team that were likely to be focused on as the favourites and have been for most of the season to win the Championship, and they are, of course, Newcastle United. We've actually played a game more than Brighton, but trail them by 2 points. Brighton top on 54. Newcastle are second on 52 at the moment, having lost 2 of their last 3 games. Ross, what do you make of the season for Newcastle so far? Obviously, they kept Rafa Benitez in the summer, which was a huge coup. 52,000 seater stadium sold out most weeks, but they've stuttered a little bit, haven't they? Recently, away defeat at Blackburn Rovers, having dominated the game. Home defeat to Sheffield Wednesday. Still fairly confident they're going to go up as automatic.
I'd probably say so, unless they really do screw it up. I think the reason I said that Norwich, or in this case now Brighton, will pip them to the top is because, like I say, I think there's a certain championship nous that you accrue when you've been in this league for a while. And you look at the number of defeats that Brighton and Newcastle have had. Brighton have only lost 2, Newcastle have lost 7. And I think that kind of illustrates the point. Brighton are grinding out results when games are going against them, whereas Newcastle are falling a few more times. They've lost home and away to Blackburn Rovers, which is a massive shock considering how poorly Blackburn have been doing this season. So for me, they're still way up there, and I still think they'll be in the top 2. But I just think they've fallen a little bit short of everything they needed. They have done a hell of a lot in the summer window, and they have made a lot of changes to the squad and to the first team. And let's not forget as well that some of the teams in the Championship may never get the chance to play Newcastle again. Some of the players in there at least. So when Newcastle comes to town, it's a big fixture, and you give everything you've got to try and make sure that they know it's a hard fixture and you get something from them. So full credit to Newcastle for getting the most wins in the Championship so far this season, but they have been caught out, and for me, I think that's why I tip Brighton for the title.
Yeah, fair shout. Hard to argue with that. Josh, any sort of thoughts on Newcastle and any performers that have stood out for you? They went through quite a sort of a rejig, shall we say, in the summer, bringing in quite a few players, sort of Matt Ritchie and what's his face? Dwight Gale, thank you. There we go. That's exactly what I was thinking of. And of course, Daryl Murphy, who's not really played a huge amount. John Joe Shelby's come in. Jack Colback's come in. And Isaac Hayden, who's a player that both you and I would know a little bit about, Josh, being an ex-Arsenal trainee. He's been quietly one of their better performers. So anybody that has really sort of stood out for you, and do you think Newcastle is still going to be that club that will go up?
Yeah, I think it would be Matt Ritchie would be the star performer in there. Coming down from the Premier League to join up with Newcastle. I believe he has family ties to the club. I think his father is a staunch Geordie supporter. So it was fair enough that he has gone there for more reasons than just money, but for family pride. But I think there's an expectation on Newcastle to win every game they play in the Championship. And that's where I think they're just pushing a little bit more, because they've only got 1 draw this season, which sounds like they're going for the win for every single game rather than consolidating, getting a draw and just avoiding that loss, which is what Brighton above them have done, which is why they've only lost 2 games but drawn 6.
I think Carl Darlow deserves a shout from Newcastle as well. because Carl Darlow has
keeper.
been a bit shaky when he started at Newcastle, so they sent him back on loan to Nottingham Forest. And I can tell you, as someone who watched him and Jamal Lascelles when they were at Nottingham Forest, they both clearly had a lot about them. But the jump to Newcastle both seemed to be a bit grand for them at the time. But back in the Championship, they have both come on leaps and bounds. I think Lascelles is now their captain, and Darlow has just been brilliant in goal. Some of the saves he's made this season are absolutely fantastic.
I really like Lascelles as well myself. He's his attitude and his sort of desire to better himself really stands out for me. He's a player I do like the look of.
I'm not sure there's going to be too many younger captains in the Championship either. He's only 23, Jamal Lascelles.
I agree. Yeah, I think he got it off the back of that speech. Do you remember in the Premier League?
Yeah.
I think that was what got him there. A question for you both, though. I don't know if you know the answer to this. Chancellor Mbemba, just looking down the appearances list, only 7 this season. He's a player I saw a lot of at Anderlecht and thought he was quite a good little player, I must be honest. 7 appearances this season suggests he's been out of favour. Is it that, or has he been injured? What's the deal with him, do you think?
I think he's had an ankle injury from memory, but I'm not sure if that was this season or last season. I would guess it was part of the reshuffle, and it's just that he hasn't been favoured in terms of the starting lineup. I don't know if Josh has got a better memory than I have of injuries, but I just think he's probably been passed over for Lascelles and maybe Hanley.
Yeah, I believe he was injured at the beginning of the season. I could be wrong, but he's definitely gone to the Cup of Nations, which could be what Rafa wanted to do. Didn't want that interruption in his back line during a key part of the season.
It's an interesting one, that, because as I say, I think he was a player that I really thought would have a bit of promise. He's potentially a player I think maybe a couple of Premier League clubs might look at prizing away if they can, but at 22 you'd think he's the future. But is it Handley and Clark who seem to be in favour at the moment, as well as Lascelles, of course, but they seem to be the go-to guys. And Paul Dummett getting games as well. Haidara, another one, not played at all this season. I think he has been injured from memory, but again, a promising young fullback not getting games. Okay, so that's Newcastle. Same question again then. Scores out of 10, Josh?
I would give Newcastle an 8. I think they've done very well, but we'd have expected them probably to take the top position in the league.
I think that's fair. And Ross?
I'd actually go with 7. For almost the exact same reasons. I just think that when Newcastle came down, there was an expectation that even if they don't win the league, there would be a number of 5-0s, because of the team they've got, the manager they've got. And I just think at some points this season, they haven't looked like they've properly acclimatised to the division. They still play like they're a team that's got aspiration, or I should say a team that's already still in the Premier League. And I just think that's cost them a bit. So for a little bit of arrogance, I'm going to knock them down to a 7. But that's not to say they've not been brilliant, because they have.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think that's both fair comments. Okay. We're going to sort of group a couple of teams together in the upcoming bits and bobs that we do. So we're going to group 3rd and 4th together, because they are currently Reading and Huddersfield, both on the same points, 46 points apiece. So I think what I'm going to do with when we group teams together is give you one each. That seems to make sense. So I'm going to give Reading I'm going to give them to Josh, actually, because Josh, obviously, Reading playing the same colour as Brighton, so there's a little bit of a link there. But also, former Manchester United manager Jaap Stam is, of course, their boss. He came in pre-season. I think there's a lot of kind of surprise. It probably was surprise, really. He's done a very, very good job quietly, hasn't he, down there? And Reading, they look impressive. They look on a charge. The question is, do you see them sustaining it? That goal difference is a worry for me. Only +4 after 24 games. So what do you make of Reading at the moment?
Yeah, I think Jaap Stam's style when he came into the league was definitely questioned by the home supporters. He plays in a very Dutch style, which comes from his heritage, obviously, and where he learnt his trade as assistant manager in the Dutch league. They've done very, very well. I wouldn't have thought to see them so high. But yeah, as you say, the goal difference they've got isn't particularly strong. I think they need to be looking, now that they've got the team settled with the philosophy that Jaap Stam wants to employ, that they need just that goal scorer up front, and then they can really push for the playoffs.
Yeah, what's looking at that, as you said, the goal scorers, Gareth McCleary's probably their standout player, 8 goals from 23. Jan Kermigan, not getting any younger at 35, 7 and 22. Do you think that is the big missing link in this Reading side, and is it something you think they can address in January? There's a lot of good strikers in and around mainland Europe that wouldn't be hugely expensive. I don't think Reading is skint. So is there either a player that you think would be a good fit, or is it just purely a striker that they're missing at the moment?
I think it is a striker that they are just missing at the moment. I think Yapstam came in and addressed what you would have thought Yapstam would have addressed first, which was the defence. He's got some nice young players in there. I think he brought in Tyler Blackett at the time. He's got Chris Gunter in there as well, who's really shoring up the back for them. I think we may see Yapstam use some of his connections in Holland to try and get himself a striker in here. I can't think of anyone that they would target and who would be let go by any of the fellow Championship players.
Yeah, it's a tough one to know for sure on who's available. We might touch on that later on in the pod. Quick shout from you, Ross, a certain player that's caught your eye at Reading?
Yeah, John Swift. He's an England under-21 player, I believe. Ex-Chelsea Academy. He has been fantastic ever since he's been at Reading. He was at Brentford, I believe, the season beforehand, and he was very good there, but at Reading he has come on leaps and bounds, and he's got good competition in that midfield as well with some of their central midfielders, but Swift is by far and away their standout performer every time I watch Reading.
Yeah, he's a good. He certainly looks apart. He looked good at the weekend, actually, in the FA Cup game when he came on. So, yeah, one to look at. So you get the next team down then, Ross, which is Huddersfield Town. Again, surprise package. It's the cliche, I know, but it's the only thing you can describe them as, really. Don't think anyone particularly saw this coming, but Jurgen Klopp's mate, David Wagner, still being linked with Wolfsburg, even though he's insistent that it's not a job for him, doesn't interest him. I think there's a little bit to run in this, but once again, very impressive with the likes of my mate Kuchunga banging in the goals. 30 goals, 28 conceded. Again, that goal difference worries me a bit. But 14 victories from 25, you can't argue with it, can you?
No, absolutely not. And the thing is that I've said this before, they're classed as the baby Liverpool because they play the same way that Jurgen does, which for me is a slight concern, because while it does mean they can swing for the fences a little bit higher in the division than they might otherwise, the big risk is burnout, especially in a division like the Championship where it is so many fixtures. It's 46 across the season. You're obviously playing 2 games a week sometimes for the entire month. It's a big concern about burnout. They have just come through the Christmas period, which, as we all know, is the toughest period of a season. Still within a shout of the top 6. So I am really enjoying watching Huddersfield when I get the chance to see them. But I am slightly concerned personally they might suffer from some burnout.
Yeah, I suppose that is always the concern with a team that you don't necessarily expect to be up there, and also can they handle the pressure, which in itself is burnout. I suppose it's a mental burnout, isn't it, when you're in that
thing
sort
is,
of
there's nearly every single season there's always one team in the playoffs that starts to slip, and I don't want to say it's going to be Huddersfield because they've already proven a lot of people very badly wrong this year, but I look at them and I say they are the most susceptible to it because of the style they play.
Yeah, agree with that. I do like Kachunga, who's got 8 goals from 25. I think he's their top scorer, the striker. He was at Paderborn, who's the team I follow in Germany. Yes, I know. And Van La Parra is a name I consistently see mentioned in sort of good or high levels when he's performing for Huddersfield. So again, a decent player. Looking at this, they've got a couple of Germans in the back line as well. Hefele, is that how you pronounce the surname? I think it is, and Lowe and Schindler at the back. So, and they've all got 15 plus appearances each this season. So, German efficiency. Who'd have thought? We'll definitely be keeping a tab on those because, of course, those two in the playoff positions. And just underneath them, we've got Leeds and Sheffield Wednesday. I'm going to start with Leeds. I'm going to give you them, Ross, because they're a grand old name of English football, for good and bad. Fanatical support base. Gary Monk is in charge. They are on a bit of a tear, I think it's fair to say, as far as the Championship goes. I think they've only had 2 defeats in something like, is it 14 games now? What do you make of them? Because is it really a surprise that things have settled since Cellino has been a bit more out of the picture?
I think it is a massive surprise because we all kind of expected Gary Monk to get thrown into the meat grinder when he went to Leeds. And very quickly, to his credit, Chilino changed his tune and said, no, I'm going to stick with this guy. They obviously went on that bad run at the start of the year. I think they went about 6 or so games without a win. And there were a lot of rumours flying around then that, this probably isn't going to work now because we know what Chilino's like. But he kept the faith, he carried on building the squad, he gave Gary Monk time, and now they are more than reaping the rewards. I think he's just sold 50% of his stake in the club, and he could be selling the rest of his stake in the summer if the new owner wishes to take it on. They have also got, of course, that guarantee that they will refund half the price of season tickets if they don't make the playoffs. So there's a lot of pressure on Leeds to make sure they get into that top 5, but I think with some clever additions in the winter window, then there's no reason Leeds United can't be in and around they come the end of the year.
Yes, it's definitely another one of those grand old, and there are a ton of big name clubs in the Championship, it has to be said. So it's another one to look at. I could see Pablo Hernandez still doing his stuff, 15 appearances, and Ronaldo Vieira, the interestingly named teenager. How's he getting on?
Can't be bad with a name like that, can he? Cannot
you
be bad.
Can't, no.
He's not doing badly. He is impressing people. I said it on the last podcast. But the one I would pick out from Leeds is Charlie Taylor. I think he's been absolutely fantastic, and he consistently turns up for them. Louis Coyle is another good fullback. I don't think he's got many appearances so far this season, but he impressed me when I saw him. And there's obviously Pontus Jansson, who everyone loves as soon as they see him play, because he's such a passionate, heart-on-sleeve kind of defender. But yeah, Ronaldo Vieira is impressing. The one goal he has scored this season was quite a good one from range, so quietly impressing, but I certainly think there are more impressive standout performers so far this season in that team.
Yeah. I think it's Leeds are one I do keep an eye on, because they've got bags of potential, and having them. There was a sniffy side of me that was sort of glad to see them go in the Premier League all those years ago, because I wasn't a big fan of their supporters. But no, you can't argue that they're a name that belongs at the English top table. So yes, one to keep an eye on. And Sheffield Wednesday is where I'm going to give Josh a chance to keep an eye next, because 2 draws from the last 2 games has kind of put a bit of a dent on their promotion hopes. But again, 42 points, they're in 6th in the last playoff position at the moment for their 25 played. Again, goal difference, I'm not convinced that, only +4, 28 scored, 24 conceded. But Carlos Carvajal, for me, one of the underrated coaches in the lower leagues, if you class Championship as lower league. What do you make of Sheffield Wednesday, and do you think they're one of the sort of favourites to stick around in those playoff positions?
Yeah, they've certainly got the experience of hanging around the playoffs, so I think they do. I think they had an early wobble at the beginning of the season, especially with Forestieri throwing his toys out of the proverbial pram, but I think he's got his head screwed on straight now and getting down to business. They've got the likes of Stephen Fletcher, who's come in, and they've got Gary Hooper scoring goals. I think, they're going to get in and around the playoff positions come the end of the season. It might be one of those that they kind of scrape in by the skin of the teeth, but I expect Sheffield to be in and around there at the end.
Anybody that sort of caught your eye in that Sheffield Wednesday side, because it's quite an eclectic mix of different types of players. Anybody that you've looked at from afar and gone, "Ooh, quite tasty"?
Barry Bannon, I think he's doing a great job in their midfield. It's also intriguing to find out that that's where Will Buckley has ended up, a ex-winger of Brighton. He's a very hard-working winger. Didn't necessarily have his chance at Sunderland when he was brought in by Poyet to show what he could do, but I think the Championship is his level, and it's probably one to look out for in the rest of the season.
Adam Reach as well, one of their fullbacks from Middlesbrough. He's been absolute class since he's gone there.
Yeah, I think Nat's mentioned him on a few occasions, said he's been very good. And Forestieri's dividing opinions as well, isn't he? I think some of the supporters love him, some of them have really lost a bit of love for him due to some of the sort of talk about him staying or going. And it's funny how tide turns, isn't it, on occasions. And good Stephen Fletcher still banging in 6 and 23 up front as well. So some interesting names there. So before we move down the table again, let's go back and get some reviews, shall we say, of performances so far this season. So let's go back to Reading. Score out of 10 from you both, Ross?
8, I'd go with.
And Josh?
Yeah, I'd agree with Ross there. 8.
Interesting. Huddersfield Town, reverse order. Josh?
8.5 for Huddersfield.
Ooh, he's introduced the 0.5s. By the end of this podcast, I fully expect a 0.864 recurring, hopefully. Ross, Huddersfield?
I was going to say 9, but as soon as Josh added in decimals, 8.5, I think that's a good score for them.
Oh, God, the wheels are flying off. This is going to end in peril. Leeds United, Ross?
8, because I didn't expect Gary Monk to be there that long, so that deserves a point in itself.
Like it. Josh?
I'll go with 7. I don't think they're exceeding expectations, but they're certainly not going under them.
Ooh, clever answer. And finally, Sheffield Wednesday, Josh?
Sheffield, I would go with a 7 again on that. I think for similar reasons. We expected them to be in and around this position. There's definitely teams below them that may be the cause of their elevated position, but they're there come January. So,
Like it, yeah. I think that's fair assessment, and they've got experience of being up there. Do you go along with that same score, Ross, or something different?
I'd actually go with 6, because I think they've actually underperformed a little bit. Considering how well they did at the end of last season, I expected them to take that on into the new season. I thought they'd be much higher. I thought they'd be much more comfortable at this point of the year. So for me, it's a 6, but that's not to say that they haven't been brilliant, because they had to turn around some sticky form at the start of the year. So.
Okay, fair enough. So, by those scores, I'm getting the idea that both of you think that there's a fairly good chance that those teams will be still up and around the shake-up come the end of the season. So, let's have a look at the teams between 7th and 10th. Then we're going to again group a couple together in the interest of time. So, who fancies Derby and Barnsley? I'll give those to Josh. Why not? So firstly, Derby, Josh. Kind of Steve McLaren has come in and turned them around, really, I suppose. I mean, they were on a little bit of a wobble. He seems to have come in and done a pretty decent job. Thoughts on Derby so far this season, sitting in 7th on 40 points?
Yeah, I think Derby are one of those perennial underachievers in the Championship, especially with the squad quality they've got. I think Steve McLaren is doing a very good job to sort that club out, because they've had some problems, especially last season with what's his name, current Swansea manager,
Paul Clement.
Paul Clement.
Yeah, having a interesting exit from the club, and then just them having quite a mundane season. I think with Steve McLaren coming in, he's sorted them out. They've got them playing the football that almost got them promoted a couple of seasons ago. And there's some outstanding performers within that team. You've got the likes of Tom Ince and one of my favourites, Will Hughes. I think he's not necessarily underrated anymore, because people keep banging the drum on Will Hughes, and it's gone a bit quiet on the transfers of whether or not he'd be moving to Premier League clubs. And I think that's good for him at the moment to continue his development in lower leagues, as we've seen with other players that have done their time in the lower leagues. It can help them later on in their career.
Yeah, they have impressed me of late. I've never, I don't know, with Derby, I always get that feeling they're going to blow it just when you think that they're not. But yes, it's a tough one to judge. I'm going to get you to score both of these as we go along this time. So are you going to go above the 6, or are you stepping down the marks here?
I think Derby, should be about a 6. I expect them to be slightly higher up the table with the quality they've got. As I say, the perennial underachievers are Derby County.
Yeah, I can't disagree. Ross, have you got anything different for Derby?
No, but at the same time, 6, I think, it does disrespect how quickly Steve McLaren turned them round after the Nigel Pearson spell, because they were in free fall while Nigel Pearson was there, and all the troubles were kicking off with the board. The job that McLaren's done since he's gone back in has been fantastic, so 6 feels a little bit harsh to me, but considering where they should be, I think that's probably about an accurate score.
Fair enough. What about Barnsley, Josh? Are you, again, they're one of those sort of unfashionable clubs. I mean that in the most respectful way I can. But, sort of a smaller club, Rich history. People forget, of course, they were a Premier League side once upon a time. Neil Redfern and all that. Slowly rebuilding, because eighth in the Championship, that's got to be above expectations at this stage. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. They've got a very young squad as well. So to see them up there and performing so well is definitely credit to them. And they're getting that with the interest from significantly bigger clubs in their players. People like James Bree is an outstanding wing back, and it's definitely someone that people should keep an eye on. They've managed to get Adam Armstrong in, who is he on loan from Newcastle?
Yeah,
Was that yeah. And he had some cracking seasons, especially at Coventry last year. So I think they've done really well this season.
Yeah, they've really, really impressed me at different times. And I think, Ross, you're quite a big fan of Conor Hurricane, aren't you, as well? Who I saw a bit at Plymouth when he was down here. He looks like a star in the making, doesn't he?
Oh, he has been brilliant for them. I remember when we did the preview pod for the Championship back in the late summer, you and I were predicting the bottom three, and we said, right, it's going to be Rotherham, Burton because they can't score, and Barnsley because they can't defend. And the fact that Barnsley are so high up the table is almost completely down to the midfield, and especially to Hurahan. The way they've controlled games has almost been able to shield the fact that their defence isn't all that good. And they had some strikers in good form as well. Tom Bradshaw finally getting some goals as of late. Adam Armstrong hasn't got as many as I would have liked him to, but is still always such a huge danger. Winner was their leading scorer, I think, with 11. So I've been really, really impressed with Barnsley. Completely surprised everyone. Like I say, they were almost nailed on to go down, but to now be in 8th is an incredible, incredible season for them so far.
Yeah, well said. Scores then. Ross, for Barnsley?
9.
Oh, like it. Gone full rogue there. Josh?
I was going to agree. I was going to go 9 as well.
Why? 9 out of 10 for 8th place Barnsley. Good stuff. Okay, the next two, Ross, I have a feeling will have very different marks. Norwich, first of all, in 9th, 37 points. At time of recording, I think Alex Neil is still in a job. That's something that surprises you, I think, given their extremely upwards and downwards form throughout the season. It's been a little bit of a mess down there, hasn't it, this season? What do you make of Norwich?
Yeah, and the reason that it does surprise me is because, like I said on the last pod, I follow a lot, if not all, of the football teams in the EFL, and the Norwich fans that I see are every week they are slating the manager. They are begging for Norwich to give him the sack, and yet he hasn't been. If I had not been following some Twitter accounts, I've not been seeing the social media reaction, I would have said stick with him. But just considering the sheer amount of bile that goes around on social media at the moment, and it's by guys that are actually quite intelligent in the arguments they put across. It's not reactionary. It's guys saying that this is completely regressive. It's not even the same kind of Norwich that we were seeing at the start of the season, let alone at times during the Premier League. Massive shock to see them doing so poorly in so many games. I think they conceded 5. I want to say it was Brentford, but there was a spell of about 2 or 3 weeks where every team were beating each other 5-0, so I could have that the wrong way around. But
it was Brighton.
Brighton, there you go. They conceded 5 to Brighton, and it's like, bizarre. A strange result, considering that Brighton and Norwich, just on paper, should be in and around the same position. Like I said at the start, I tipped them for the title. That's where they should be. But the form has just dropped off so far. It's a real surprise to me to see Alex Neil still there. I really like him, and I hope he does stay. But I am continually shocked that the fans haven't forced him out the door yet.
Yeah, me too. Has anybody impressed you at Norwich this season? Anyone that because they are one of the teams, for our listeners that may not be familiar with the Championship, they probably will be familiar with the green and yellow of Norwich and the fact they were a Premier League side just a year ago. So is there anyone that has been remotely decent in your eyes?
Both of the Murphy twins. My favourite is Jacob Murphy. He's a midfielder. I think he was the one that scored an absolute rocket against Everton in the League Cup a couple of months back now. If you haven't seen it, go and have a look at that. I think he's going to be a massive star, Jacob Murphy. Some of the shots he's taken on are just fantastic. And his twin, Josh Murphy, is a striker. He's also been quite good. He hasn't got the same amount of goals. He doesn't get the same kind of performances in, but both look very, very good for their age.
And have they still got? I can't not. You know that I have this thing about saying I think about things. I think about Mick McCarthy. Oh, that sounds dodgy. But you know, I said that I have certain accents that I hear names. That striker for Norwich. I can't say it without going Carl Lafferty. I can't help it. It just turns me Northern Irish. He's still there. He's still not playing games though. Why do they keep him? They just don't want to play him.
I think he's just a name there now, isn't he? He's been there so long that no one wants to lose him because he's quintessentially Norwich. But if he's not going to play, then for his sake, you'd think move him on.
Strange one, isn't it? That striking force: Cameron Jerome 30, Naismith 30, Lafferty 29. It's an ageing squad, isn't it? And also, as you put there, Josh, interesting stat about their sort of bizarre turn of form.
So as Ross said, that they'd shipped 5 to Brighton, and that was on the 29th of October, and then 5 games later they put 5 past Brentford, and that was the beginning of December. So they're definitely a very strange team. I wouldn't put them in my accumulator, let's put it that way.
No, note to self, scratch off accumulator. What about Fulham then, Ross? Because we had a conversation recently, didn't we, about my crazy prediction that Fulham would get promoted this season. I'm sticking by it. I'm banging the Fulham drum. Has nothing to do with the fact that I love Craven Cottage. I quite like Fulham's kit, and I had some amazing times watching Fulham back in my youth because they were fairly local and cheap to go to. So it has nothing to do with any of that, or indeed Clint Dempsey and all his rap skills from the past. But I like the way they play football, and that's something that you picked up on watching them in their recent cup game with Cardiff. Do we have a dark horse on our hands in Fulham?
In my opinion, absolutely. They are by far and away the best footballing side at the moment in the Championship. I said this on the FA Cup show that I don't get to see them every week because that's the nature of the Football League. There's so few games that are actually televised. But I have gone back in the last 24 hours and I've watched as many highlights as I can of recent Fulham. And some of the football they're playing is lovely. Really, really easy on the eye. And they do have quite a young squad now. They've got a lot of younger players coming up through the ranks and a lot of players that are really starting to find their feet. I remember on the preview pod, someone asked us the question, is Sonny Aluko going to be able to fill the boots of Moussa Dembele, who had just gone to Celtic? And I said, probably not, because if he was going to be as good as him, then Hull wouldn't have let him go for as little money as they did. The thing is with Sonny Aluko, though, is he's taken on Moussa Dembele's role and added more to it because he's a more hold-up player and he's got more experience. And with that, the attack looks so much nicer and so much more fluid. Lucas Piazon is a player I've liked for a number of years now. He looks fantastic in midfield. Tom Kearney is another one. I used to watch him at Blackburn and think, wow, you've got a big career. He's there at the moment and he's doing absolutely fantastically. You've got Ryan Fredericks as well. They've just got such a good all-round team and they are playing some really lovely stuff under Jokanovic. So for me, they're a dark horse. I'm still not convinced they're going to go up. I still think there's teams in this division that are better prepared for the run-in than Fulham are. But at the same time, the Championship is such that another club like Norwich could slip up so badly that it could open the door for any club, and I think Fulham will be one of the first names there to try and pounce on them.
I hope so, just because I never get anything right, and it'd be kind of cool if I got something right, so I hope so. And as you say, while Fulham is still at Craven Cottage, which I don't know how long it will be for, but it's just a proper old football stadium right on the river, and it's lovely. Love it, love it, love it, love it. Okay, scores for these two teams then. We'll start with Norwich, shall we, and get the scores on them. Josh, what would you give Norwich?
I think I'd give Norwich a 4.5.
Oh, ouch, lowest yet. Anything better from you, Ross?
I would go bang on 5 because they did so well at the start of the year. They looked absolutely impervious and now they've dropped off completely. I think if you balance it across the whole half season, I think 5 is probably about where I'd put them.
Fair enough. And where would you go with Fulham?
I would go... sorry, Josh. I'd go 7.5 is where I'd go.
Oh, he's stolen the 0.5. Josh, let me guess. 6.734 or something like that?
No, just 7. What are you trying to imply?
Just nothing at all. Nothing at all. Like it. Okay. Right. Let's go down down then. And into the bottom half we go. And I'm just going to get sort of brief opinions from you both on individual clubs before we go down to the relegation zone. So a handful of clubs between 11th and 16th is where I'm going to go next. Let's start with Preston. Russ, start us off. Have you been impressed with Preston? I genuinely didn't plan that. 11th in the table currently. Thoughts on them this season?
If I was to have guessed where they'd be at this point in the season, I would have probably put them somewhere about 14th. So I'm not majorly shocked to see them up in 11th. They have done a lot better than I thought they would, to give them full credit. And Maki Anok is a player that I really, really rate. Every time I see him, I wonder why he's not at a club near the top of the division, because he has got some very, very good hold-up play work. But I think Preston are probably just about where they deserve to be. They're not the prettiest club in the world, but they don't have the finances to compete with your Norwiches and your Fulhams. They can't play that kind of tiki-taka style, so they have to just get stuck in and do what they can to stay up. So they are overachieving slightly, but I think mid-table is probably where I would have pegged Preston.
Fair enough. Aston Villa, Josh, lost recently to Spurs in the FA Cup. Steve Bruce came in as manager after the Roberto Di Matteo experiment didn't work. Who'd have thought that wouldn't have worked? Yes. They sit 12th currently. One of those larger dark horses for the playoffs potentially. What do you think, and how have you sort of felt since they've changed the manager and restructured things this season? Is there a light at the end of the tunnel for Villa?
Yeah, I think Steve Bruce came in just before they played Brighton, a game that I ended up going to, and we were all really annoyed that Di Matteo had just been sacked before that game, because we thought we could have done quite well out of that, because they were playing some awful football at the beginning of the season. But Steve Bruce is a man who knows how to get a championship team playing and getting them promoted. I think he could just drag them up kicking and screaming into the playoffs this year. They've got a team bristling with talent. You've got the likes of Jordan Amavi, who I think you know, Kris, from his time in France.
Love him.
And you've also got the experience of that league in Miles Jedinak, who's a very shrewd signing, I thought, just to bring him in the off-season. And you've still got people who just a couple of seasons ago were playing in the Champions League, in the likes of Jordan Ayew.
I don't know if we know the story, but Tony Gia, the Aston Villa chairman, came out and said that they rejected a £25 million bid for Jordan Amavi from, we're guessing, Marseille. They were the ones linked with him at the time. He claims it was 25 million for someone bid for him, but interesting stories at the moment.
I can put some flesh on the bone of that if you like. It's nonsense. What actually happened was Marseille bid £15.5 million for him, which is quite considerably less.
Tony Gia has kind of fluffed it then, has he?
Yes, I think the idea was, if we say that a bigger club, which is strange why he picked Marseille because they're not huge, but still a club with a lot of money, if we put our name out there, it might mean that other clubs with a lot of money also will be interested and create a bidding war. It's not happened. So yeah, that didn't really work. I'm sure Jordan Amavi would love to play for Marseille, by the way, but I think it's going to take a bit more than 15 million quid to get him out. But I will stick my head on the block, excuse me, and say that he will be gone by the end of January. So I'll say that much. We shall see. Okay, and next one down before we have a look at some more scores. Birmingham City, Ross, the villain neighbours, if you will. They sit 13th. Now, quite the story this, isn't it? They were poodling along quite nicely under Gary Rowett. Nothing spectacular, but equally nothing bad. And then what's happened? In comes Gianfranco Zola, completely out of nowhere. It's got you a bit angry, this one, didn't it?
Yeah, because it doesn't make any sense. I've said numerous times that Birmingham are kind of the neutrals' favourite in the Championship because they're so exciting to watch, and the job that Gary Rowett did with them, it was absolutely incredible. And he got them playing some really nice football as well. It was counter-attacking football, but it was lethal at times, and it was really easy on the eye as well. And then obviously the ownership change comes in, and I'm thinking, great, Gary Rowett's going to get some money to play with. He's going to be able to bring Birmingham back up to the top of the league, maybe even get them promoted, and then his career can really kick on. And what do? They sack him for Gianfranco Zola. Their reasoning was that they wanted exciting football that had a big future ahead of it, And I'm sat there thinking, well, you could probably write that on Gary Rowett's tombstone. So why did you get rid of him? He's an absolutely fantastic manager at this level, with a big career ahead of him. I can't understand why you would have taken the money off him and said, no, on your bike, especially for a manager like Gianfranco Zola, who has had a fantastic playing career, but his managerial career hasn't been stellar outside of the season and a half he had where it went well with Watford. So I'm not impressed at all with the change. The Birmingham fans haven't been either. Obviously, there's loads and loads of time for him to turn it around, but in the short term, that has steamed me up. And Birmingham have gone from being one of my favourite clubs to watch to one of my least favourite, because it's all side to side and backward passing at the moment, and it's just dire at the moment.
Yeah, it's a really strange on that, because, as you say, I didn't think they were doing badly, and then in comes the new brush to sweep clean. What about Brentford, Josh? What do you make of them? Because again, they're a club that I admire, and they try to do things the right way, and it seem like quite a proper family club with a real tradition and a bit of history about them. 14th, is that about right where they not should expect to be, but is it sort of a realistic position for a club of that size at the moment?
Yeah, I think they're unfortunate that arguably one of their best players has been out injured since the start of the season in Alan Judge. But saying that, they've got a team full of a lot of talent, a lot of players that have come through bigger clubs, youth academies. You've got the likes of Josh McEachran in the squad, and you have got Mr. Hogan, who is subject to a lot of transfer bidding activity at the moment in the January, as he's got 14 goals in 25.
That's quite a record, isn't it? By the way, that is quite a record. Didn't they have a load of players at Brentford that have mysteriously been shipped out? Because I remember sort of
Alex Pritchard was there. You might remember him being there, and he absolutely stole the show. He's now at Norwich, but
yeah, and they've got a lad up front, German Hoffman. Philip Hoffman, that's the one, who was quite decent at Kaiserslautern from memory. I think he got a few goals in a couple of seasons. I think it's 2015 era, I think. I may be wrong. Excuse me, because I remember him because he's an ex-Paderborn player. Second mention for Paderborn in an EFL podcast. Hey. But yeah, I always thought he was a decent little player, and he hasn't really got starts. So strange old squad that, looking down it. It's lots of interesting players, different what's the word? Nationalities. And they had, Josh, didn't they have the Arsenal boy on loan last season? John Terrell was down there, wasn't he, last season?
It was Birmingham, actually, John Terrell.
Oh, it was Birmingham. Who was it? I'm sure Brentford had an Arsenal boy.
They've got Nicholas Yanaris in their midfield, but he left Arsenal to make that change. I'm sure they did have another Arsenal player in their ranks, but I can't think off the top of my head who it was.
I'll have to look that up because I'm sure there's somebody down there. But yeah, nevertheless, maybe he was there the season before last, perhaps. I'll have to look into that. Anywho, let's get some scores for those four teams then, and then we'll pick on the four below them. So, Preston Ross out of 10?
7, I think. Steady Eddies.
Fair enough. And Josh?
Yeah, 7.
Fair enough. Aston Villa currently sitting 12th. Josh?
Might be harsh on here. I think 3. I expected them to be second at this time this season.
Brutal, like it. Josh?
You've already asked, Josh. Do you mean me?
Ross, sorry. Your names are too similar.
For me, I'd actually go 6, because it doesn't surprise me whatsoever when I saw Di Matteo going in that they'd struggle. And the job that Steve Bruce has done there since he's gone in has been fantastic. So for me, it's 6, but I do completely understand where Josh is coming from, because that is a side that really should be up in the inside at least the top 6, considering how much money was invested in them.
Yeah, well, that's again fair reasoning. What about Birmingham then, Ross? Where would you go with them?
1. No, I would go. See, I don't want to just ignore all the good work that Gary Rowett's done, but at the moment I'd say 5, because the start of the season was excellent, but they have so badly dropped off right now. I just don't have faith in Birmingham at the moment.
Can see your point. Yeah, can see your views. What about you, Josh?
I was going to go an overall of a 6 for Birmingham. I think they've had a very decent season, albeit Gianfranco Zola appears to be undoing all that good work.
Yeah, again, hard to argue with that. What about Brentford then? Josh, you can have the start on that one.
With Brentford, I'd say a 6.5. I think I expected them to be around the same position they are. And yeah, I think they've put in some decent performances considering that they're missing one of their star players.
Fair enough. And what about yourself, Russ?
I'd probably go 7 for much the same reasons. They're probably where we expected them to be, but they could also very easily have been dragged into a relegation fight, such as the relegation picture at the moment. So for me, I think they're doing quite well.
Agreed. Okay, we'll take another handful of 4, and then we'll really touch on those that are really struggling down the bottom. So we'll whip through the next 4. Ipswich Town, Ross, you can have those. Mick McCarthy under quite a lot of pressure. Lots of fans getting a little bit upset. Do you think they've underachieved, or based on the budget they've got, have they maybe overachieved?
They have underachieved because this was a team that was in the playoffs a season or two back. At the same time, I think I called it back in the preview pod that considering some of the big squads that are now in this division, I did kind of fear they'd get strangled out. I did fear they'd be in this kind of position. So for me, they're in and around where I thought they would be. But I completely understand the frustration with the style, considering how successful it's been the past few years to now see them down in 15th.
Yeah, struggling badly at the moment. So the manager seems to be under an awful lot of pressure down there. Let's get scores individually as we go through these ones. So where would you put them, Ross, at the moment?
6 for me.
6. And Josh?
Agreed there, 6.
6, good. I should be keeping a tally of these, really, shouldn't I? I'll have to write them down later. What about Wolves, then? Another underachiever, Josh, would you say, for the size of the club, the money involved, the stadium, all of that goes with it? A former Premier League side, of course, as well. Underachieving, or just having one of those seasons of consolidation for you in 16th?
I think it's a bit of both. They had a change of ownership over or at least a change of board mentality over the summer, where they ended up bringing in a couple of players from Portugal who appear to have taken a while to settle. But you've got the likes of Helder Costa, who is just turning out to be an absolutely great player for them. Yeah, it is a difficult one with how they're doing, but I think overall they'll be a little bit unhappy that they're not clear of the relegation zone because, there's only 4 points between them and the start of the relegation zone. I think they'd hope to have been a little bit safer.
Yeah, I think that's a fair argument. They're another club that I just look at and I think, yeah, they're a proper sort of old-fashioned club, so much history and heritage, and I'd like to see them back because again, it was another ground that I weirdly quite enjoyed going to. Molyneux, I've been 3 times and I kind of liked it. I don't know why, just did. But yeah, we shall see how they get on in the second half of the season. Scores on the doors for the Wolves. Josh, where are you putting them at the moment?
I would say right in the middle, 5. They're just slightly below where they'd expect to be.
Yeah, that's probably where I would go as well. Ross, done it again.
I would go 4 because I think they've been poorly managed since day one. Getting rid of Kenny Jackett, bringing in Walter Zenga. Some of the transfers they've made haven't paid off at all. If it wasn't for Helder Costa, I think they'd be in much bigger danger. So for me, it's 4.
Kenny Jackett given his coat. Let's move quickly on to Queen's Park Rangers, Ross. Another big club, quote unquote, another former Premier League side. Ian Holloway is back in charge there. Big Ollie down at Loftus Road. For me, I don't know if you agree with this, they're a club that are badly in need of a complete squad overhaul. And arguably a new stadium seems to be too much of the old holding them back. Thoughts on them this season? They currently sit 17th.
I do agree with that, but at the same time, they've had 3 or 4 squad overhauls in the past 3 or 4 seasons, haven't they? And they just can't get it right. It's bizarre. I don't think for a minute that they'll go down, but if you are into cheeky bets, I think Queen's Park Rangers are probably your cheeky bet for the relegation places. They can't seem to find consistent form. They've got 2 wins on the bounce now, but I think it was about 6 defeats in a row or something similar to that beforehand. For me, I still think they're in quite a bit of danger. There's now some stories that their striker Polter, I think it is subject to a bid from Germany, so they could be losing another player. Jaron Cherry is now going to China. I think he's their best player of all their midfielders at least. So for me, I still think they're bang in trouble. I like the Ian Holloway Queen's Park Rangers partnership, but they are in a lot of bother.
Yes, yeah, agreed. I'm with you. Ollie's a guy who divides opinion, particularly with Plymouth Argyle fans, but he's always a pretty honest, genuine guy, and I hope it works out for him. What are we going with schools on the doors here then? Ross, what would you give him out of 10 at the moment?
I would once again go with 4, I think, because they haven't done anywhere near as well as we thought they would. And like I say, I still think they're a cheeky bet for the relegation zone, even if I don't think they will go down.
Fair point. And Josh?
I think Holloway has turned a corner with them now, so I would go 4.5.
Fair enough, 4.5. And Josh, you can have Bristol City before we kind of drill into these relegation threatened clubs, or at least the clubs that are down at the moment. Bristol City on a losing streak at the moment, and we touched on it on a recent English breakfast that we did. What do you make of them? Because again, are they punching above their weight, arguably even being in the Championship, or are they a club that you think should be aspiring for much bigger things?
I think Bristol City have had a very, very interesting season. They've got Tammy Abraham up front on loan from Chelsea, who's just been smashing in the goals consistently across this season so far. But their defence has become very, very leaky. And I think that's what's happened with their recent turn in form, because Abraham hasn't stopped scoring. Just Bristol have just kept conceding and conceding. And they're on a run of 6 league defeats in a row at the moment, with the draw in the FA Cup last weekend. So, yeah, it's been very interesting to see what's going on. They really need to sort out that defence. And if they can't, you could easily see them dropping into that relegation zone, as Ross says, with Queen's Park Rangers as well. They're both in very perilous positions at this time of the season.
Yeah, panic stations a little bit. Marks out of 10 for them.
I think with the start of their season to take into consideration and the huge drop in form, I think we have to be looking at a 6.
Yeah, that's generous, I think. Ross, anything different?
I would go 5 for many of the same reasons. They had a great start. They've slumped lately, but they do have some excellent players. They have a bit more money than I think people give them credit for. Players like Gustav Engvall, who is a really talented young Swedish striker, yet to really find his feet. I still think there's hope for them, more so than Queen's Park Rangers, but yeah, they have disappointed me a little bit this year.
Yeah, fair point. Okay, let's group together 3 lots of 2 then, as we finish off the teams down here. Nottingham Forest, and Burton Albion. Josh, you can have those 2. Nottingham Forest, former European Cup winners, Brian Clough and all that, yet they sit 20th. What is going wrong? They've got a good manager in Philippe Montagnier, in my opinion. Slightly biased, maybe, but he's always been a fairly consistent and decent pair of hands. They are really, really in a bit of a mess. In fact, actually, sorry, I've taken the wrong club, haven't I? Sorry, I'll give you Cardiff as well. Let's do batches of 3. Sorry, but let's start with Forest. What do you make of what's going on down there, Josh?
Yeah, it's a team or club that have had a very, very odd time of late. They're a big historical club, and you just think back to one of the big names in English football, and yeah, Nottingham Forest are right up there with their 2 European Cups. You've also got the great squad. I think Assombalonga has been out injured, which hasn't helped in their form of late, but yeah, they just can't seem to keep a clean sheet. And with the way the transfer rumours are going at the moment, their best players seem to be subject to a lot of bids. Their captain, Henry Lansbury, who will both, Kris, remember from his time at Arsenal, coming through the youth academy. I think, they're in free fall at the moment, and they really need to stop the rot. And if they haven't got the money to invest in the squad, then we could see some players leave first before they bring them in.
Yeah, agreed. And what about Cardiff? Because, they're a similar side, 19th in the table. Big things should be expected, surely, of them. And they've gone through lots of changes themselves. Fans staying away because they're, not exactly entertaining, from what I've been told by a few people I know that support them. What do you make of them sitting in 19th on 27 points?
Yeah, I have to say Cardiff isn't a team I've seen a lot of this season. The game I was going to see with them involved was called off earlier in the year with the Brighton their game in hand. But with Neil Warnock coming in, he's steadied the ship, so to speak, brought in a couple of players just to prop them up until the transfer window comes. And I think now that he's got his hands in the purse, he can get some players in and hopefully shore up that team, because they're just missing everything from front to back in that squad.
This is not a good thing to miss when you're missing all of that. And finally, for your three, Burton Albion, in the right place, arguably. Again, 4 defeats out of the last 5. Again, we have to look at it as halfway through the season. If you offered them this position at the end of the season, would they be taking it at the moment, 21st?
I think they would. Bearing in mind the teams that are behind them, they're one of the smaller teams in the Championship, if not the smallest. They've got a tiny ground, and I think the work that it was Hasselbank that set them on their way. They've managed to pick very good, decent managers, but I think this could be, as far as they can go at the moment. They have signed some decent players though in this window to start with. I think Luke Murphy has just come in from Leeds. I'm not too sure about Marvin Sordell being up front, especially with Chris O'Grady, who I saw at Brighton, but hopefully their other strikers can bring in the goals and keep them in the Championship.
They definitely need a bit of firepower, don't they? They always strike me as a side that don't get enough goals, or have a player to get them enough goals, I guess. Maybe that's the way of putting it.
Jackson Irvin's been very good for them, though, to be fair. Jackson Irvin is highly touted from Burton Albion.
New name on my radar, so I like it. Okay. Let's get 3 scores then, and then we'll give Ross the last 3 teams. So Cardiff, first of all, Ross.
I would go 4 because they made the stupid appointment of Paul Trollope at the start of the year. Great coach, poor manager for me. And they just haven't picked up since, although I do believe they'll be a lot better when Warnock's had his transfer window.
Fair point. And Josh?
Yeah, agree with Ross on that one. I think a 4 for all the same reasons, although I am happy that Paul Trollope is now at Brighton as assistant manager.
Yeah, I bet you are. Okay, what about Nottingham Forest, Ross?
3. Considering the complete drop-off I saw in them at the start of the year when Ollie Burke was still there, they sold his soul to Red Bull Leipzig, and they didn't invest the money hardly at all in the team. Some players hugely underperforming, good players that are constantly getting themselves sent off or getting injured, like Hildeberto Pereira or Assombalonga. For me, they are in real danger, but I still think they've got enough about them to stay up. So for me, it's a 3.
And what about yourself, Josh? Any higher than that?
Yeah, I think if they do get relegated, we'll be looking at negative numbers for their season. But yeah, at the moment, it's going to be a 3.
Interesting. And what about Burton Albion, starting with you, Josh?
Burton are around where you'd expect them to be, so not getting relegated, I'd say, is a success on their part, so I'd say a 7.
Ooh, that's interesting. And what about yourself, Ross?
Yeah, I completely agree. 7. For mainly the reason that Burton Albion shouldn't even be in this division, in much the same way that Yeovil shouldn't have been a couple of seasons back. But Yeovil got absolutely tonked and went straight back down, whereas Burton have been quietly very good. So for me, it's a 7.
Okay. Last 3 then for the Championship, and indeed, excuse me, then we have to let Josh go because he's got commitments this evening. So let's plough through Blackburn, Wigan and Rotherham. Ross, these are the 3 unfortunate pulls you've pulled out of the bag. So Blackburn, first of all, again, underachievers, managerial changes. It's all happened, doesn't it? Blackburn, 22nd in the table. What do you make of them?
Hugely disappointing. Not because I thought they wouldn't be down in this kind of position, but because I thought they'd be a few places clearer. I thought they'd be 18th, 19th kind of position by the time we got to January. But to see them in 22nd is nonetheless a disappointment. They really did damage to themselves early on in the season because they just couldn't buy a win for love nor money, and it seems to just kind of spiralled from then on. They do have some good players there, obviously I'm going to be biased when I say it, but they've got Sam Gallagher, who's on loan from Southampton. He's been very, very good for them. Their only real consistent goal scorer outside of Danny Graham. And then behind that, Elliot Bennett is a player I've always liked. Danny Guthrie is there. If you are into your obscure transfers, Wes Brown, formerly of Manchester United, is currently there. He has a goal to his name. They are a bit of a ragtag club. I think I called them the Almost Club back in the preview pod, because every single player in that side is almost the next level. You know, it's a team that 10 years ago, if you put together, I think a lot more people would be able to get behind, but right now they just kind of seem to be falling away. So for me, they're a big disappointment, Blackburn, but at the same time, did I really expect more from them? I'm not entirely sure.
Hard one to judge, isn't it? What about Wigan? Because they're directly below them in 23rd. Again, bigger things expected. Not materialising though at the moment. Minus 11 goal difference as well. Wow. 19 points from 25 play. Do you think they're doomed?
Doomed, I think, is a little too far for me. I still think they're a pretty good side, but I don't think the managerial change helped. I still rate Gary Colwell very highly. I still think it's a bit of an insult that they got rid of him after such a fantastic debut season in League One. He ended up winning the league for them, and then they threw him out after about 10 games. Warren Joyce has gone in, not really done much. If anything, they are finding goals even harder to come by since Warren Joyce went in. So they are in big danger, and if I was to pick my bottom three right now, I'd probably put them in it, but I still think they've got enough about them to still be in with a fighting chance come the last weekend.
Okay, yeah, they're a tough one to judge, Wigan, aren't they? Rotherham, though, do we think they are doomed to be? They look at cut adrift, 13 points. It's going to take a monumental Neil Warnock-esque recovery like last season to keep them up, isn't it?
Yeah, and they already had their Neil Warnock opportunity when Kenny Jackett went in, and he lasted about a month, and then he left. He just couldn't take the fact that there was going to be no money available. And if there was no money available for that squad, then what hope did they have? Because they are not a very good side. Haven't been for about 2 seasons now, and it was a complete miracle that Warnock kept them up last year. So for me, they are the ones that are actually doomed in the Championship. I don't see much hope for them, despite the fact they've picked up some wins lately. They just don't even seem to be in with a shout at the moment.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that one. Okay, scores on the doors then. Josh, let's start with Blackburn.
I think Blackburn, I think we'd expect a little bit more from them in this. I'm going to go with a 5.
Interesting. And Ross?
I would go 4, because I think to find them in the bottom 3 come January is a little bit of a disappointment for them.
Fair. Yeah, what about Wigan?
I'd actually say a 2 for Wigan, because they were expected to be quite comfortable. Out of the 3 teams that came up, I think Wigan were looked at as the team to surprise everyone from the 3 that came up, and here we are in January with them second bottom, Burton not even in the relegation zone, and Barnsley high flying in the top 10. So for me, I'd probably say a 2.
2. Ouchie. And Josh?
I'd agree. Will Grigg is not on fire for them.
No, he really isn't. And finally, Rotherham. I have a feeling I know where this is going to go. Josh?
Rotherham, I think we're looking at a 2 again. They've been absolutely woeful this season.
And Ross, any advance on 2?
No, if anything, 1, because they've been so poor. Only 3 wins all season, and considering how well they did stay in the division last year, you would have hoped for some kind of reaction this year. But for me, I think they've actually regressed from where Neil Warnock took them. So for me, it's a 1.
Fair enough. Okay. Before we let you free of your shackles, Josh, I do have to obligatory predictions time on the Hipsters podcast. I couldn't let you go without them. So it's time for us all to embarrass ourselves at the mid part of the championship season. I will require an answer from you, Josh. Who wins the league? Who comes up second automatic qualification? Who wins the playoffs? Who could win the playoffs? Maybe is a better question. And who are the 3 that go down?
Okay, I will go with winning the league, because I have an awful record at predicting this. I will go with Newcastle and Brighton second, in the vague attempts that Brighton will come top, because if I ever put a bet on Brighton, they always lose. So hopefully, if I say they'll finish second, they finish first. And to make it through the playoffs, I think Leeds United. I think Gary Monk could take them up and switch places with Swansea, ironically. And to tumble out the league, I think Rotherham are already gone. I think Wigan can also go that way, and why not play devil's advocate? Nottingham Forest.
Well, you've heard it here first. Okay. Well, Ross, we could do ours in a second, but at this stage, we'll let you go, Josh, because I know you've got things to do this evening. So thank you very much for stepping on for us as usual, and no doubt you'll be back for more breakfast pods in the coming weeks. So we're holding you to these predictions, and yes, we'll have you back soon.
All right. Thank you very much, guys. And
Cheers, Josh.
I'll speak to you later.
We'll speak to you soon. Right, Ross, your turn then. Who are you going to go with for your teams to go up, go down, etc. at this stage of the season?
For the record, I hope you've got yours as well, because I'm not going to let you go this time. I will say Brighton as my champions, Newcastle up as second. The playoffs, it could go on a dime this year, really. I mean, it could go on a dime most years, but this year of all years, there's still 3 or 4 teams there that I reckon could still get 6th. So, as of right now, I would probably say Reading, but that will change week after week as this season goes on, I'm sure of that. My bottom 3, I think, is almost exactly the same as it is now, Rotherham, Wigan, and I still reckon Burton are probably going to slip just beneath the line come the end of the season.
Okay, and you want some from me, do you?
Absolutely, because if you remember rightly, this time last year we started this pod, and you got me to talk about the Championship, and I was umming and ahhing for hours trying to figure out who I wanted in my top 3, and I was desperate to fire the question back at you, but you didn't fire the Championship enough. You've now had half a season with the Championship, so
Yeah.
It's time to put your feet on the fire.
Did we ever go back and check out how good or bad our predictions were this time last year? Because that would be an interesting one to go back and listen to.
I haven't actually. That's probably something I should do after this.
Yeah, I think we should, because that could be embarrassing. Okay, all right then. Right, okay. Okay, right, Brighton win it. Okay, I'm going to put my head on the block there. Yeah, I'll say Brighton to win it and Newcastle to finish second. So where the top 2 are right now, they are the 2 that I think go up. Sheffield Wednesday from the playoffs. I think they'll turn around what they didn't do last season. So there you go. Yeah, I was so desperate to say Fulham. You know I
know
was,
you were.
Yeah, I really was. I think Fulham will make the playoffs. I'll say that much. So there you go. You can have an extra bonus prediction. 3 to go down. Yeah, Rotherham, I think universally gone. This is tough, isn't it? Bristol City. I'm just not convinced, and sadly, I think Burton Albion. Yeah. I just think 2 smaller clubs. That's what I'm going to go with. I could easily change minds, but no, that's what I'm going to stick with. So there you go. You've heard it here first.
On a more serious note, having now watched the Championship for a half season, are we enjoying the Championship? I think this is probably your first involvement in it for this long, I guess.
Yeah, I have actually. I have really enjoyed it. I'm not gonna sit here and lie and say I've watched tons of games, and I have to confess I find that show in the UK on, is it Channel 5?
Oh, the Channel. Oh, it's terrible. I don't even watch it.
God, it's abysmal. But I do watch the goals roundup on Sky, and I have been following the Championship in particular more this season. Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. That Sheffield Wednesday Newcastle game I really enjoyed post Christmas. I've seen a fair bit of Forest this year, a fair bit of Blackburn, Nottingham Forest, and sorry, who's the other team? QPR. Sorry, there we go. Got there at the end. Wolves I've seen a little bit of. I've kept tabs on the teams that have gone down. There's a few teams I still want to see a bit more of. I've seen quite a lot of Leeds recently as well. So yeah, a few teams I still need to see more of. But yeah, I am enjoying it. I have to confess, I am enjoying it. So long may it continue. Okay, anything else, any other business on the Championship before we have a look at Leagues 1 and 2 to wrap up the show? I should say at this point as well, by the way, John Torrell was at Brentford, but it was 2 seasons ago. 35 appearances, 6 goals. So there you go. I just to check I wasn't cracking up.
If I'm thinking of any more business from the Championship, there's tons of transfer stuff going on, but it's so difficult to keep up with because the Championship's transfer windows move so quickly. Hopefully by the end of the window, when it's all shut and said and done, hopefully I can get a bit of a list together and let people know on the breakfast pod about some of the major movers and shakers. But I think the biggest one that we've seen so far into the Championship has been David Nugent joined Derby County today. as of time of the 9th of January. He's left Middlesbrough for Derby on a permanent, and there's a lot of stories about James Bree at the moment from Barnsley, who is kind of like the final member of the Holy Trinity of Barnsley fullbacks. It was John Stones, then it was Mason Holgate, and now it's James Bree. He's been linked with just about everyone, but I think the big pursuiters at the moment are Manchester City, which I could see. I don't want to see it because I think James Bree needs a mid-table club first, but I could see why Manchester City would be interested in him.
Yes, yeah, James Bree, and rumour has it the next big fullback at Barnsley is Paul Camembert, so keep an eye on him. Sorry. Okay, right. Well, as you say, we'll probably address transfer rumours. I think the general plan is to do a podcast about an English breakfast podcast about the sort of the end of the January window for English clubs. So I think probably what we'll do is we'll try and cram in as many of the Championship ones as we can into that podcast at the time. So yeah, end of January we'll wrap it all up, and if there are any particularly big transfers, I'll set you a task there, Ross. You can tweet them from our podcast account. So any that you think are particularly big transfers for Championship clubs, then whack them on the old timeline. So that's what we will do. Right. Okay. Now we both hold our hands up. We're not avid followers of Leagues 1 and 2, as in, we don't see as many games as you do the Championship or I do Premier League, etc. But we do like to keep our eye. Just to sort of the teams are in there. There's some big names in both of those leagues that we've covered before. So we'll start with League One. Kind of over to you a little bit here. I don't want to pass the buck, but looking at the table, looking at some of the clubs down there, we should look at the sort of the top half first of all. We've got Sheffield United top, Scunthorpe second, Bolton, Bradford, Rochdale and Fleetwood are in the playoffs. So taking those as sort of a six-way, if you will. Which of those teams have impressed you and why?
Actually, the League One promotion race is actually, I think, one of the most exciting top-end finishes to a season that I can remember in League One for quite some time. Sheffield United have been perennially stuck in League One. Ever since they went down, they have been chopping and changing managers and trying to find the right balance, and it's never come off. This year they brought in Chris Wilder, who did a really, really good job at Northampton Town. And he had a bit of a shaky start, but since then he's turned them right round, and they're now top of the league by 4 clear points, which is huge. It's the kind of thing we expected from Sheffield United about 3 or 4 years back, but to see it finally happen now is absolutely fantastic. Scunthorpe playing some really lovely football. I used to see Scunthorpe as a bit of a dogged defensive team, but they have become a bit of a champagne team, especially in League One. I don't think that will stick around when they go up, but they're a very nice team to watch. So are Bolton Wanderers. Bolton Wanderers have been, in my opinion, the best footballing side in League One. Beautiful, beautiful football, and some fantastic players that should really be much, much higher than they are. Bradford, bit of a shock to see them fourth, but only 3 defeats in a season, especially in a division like League One. It's always going to result in higher finishes for you, so a really great season for Bradford. Rochdale have been my standout package of the playoff race so far. They had a really, really odd mismatch run near the start of the year where they kind of went from beating a team 4-0 at home to then going away to the exact same team the next game and getting beaten 4-0 away from home. At home they've got an incredible clean sheet record, but away from home it's wobbly as all hell. So they have finally started to stabilise that now, and for me I think they are dark horses for the playoffs in League One, and if they are in it come the end of the year, which I think they will be my pick for the playoffs. And Fleetwood, I think they've only not scored in 1 game in League One this season, so it doesn't surprise me to see them doing so well. The name of their manager has completely eluded me, but it's the former Brentford boss and Leeds boss, Uwe Rosler, that's who it is. He's doing quite a good job there, but it's quite a surprise to see a name as quote-unquote big as Rosler down at somewhere like Fleetwood. But very impressed with Fleetwood. Like I say, I think it's only 1 game so far this season they haven't scored in, so quietly going about their business very, very well.
Yeah, well said, and please don't ever use the expression "my standout package" again.
My apologies.
That's just not right. Moving sort of down to sort of the just below the playoff line, we've got Southend, Bristol Rovers, Peterborough, Millwall, Charlton, and Oxford. That's all the way down to 12th. Any of those kind of tickle your fancy, or any got sort of standout players you've looked at?
Well, Bristol Rovers have been very impressive. I think this is their first season back up from League Two. I think most of us remember when they went down into the conference a couple of seasons back, because that was just such a massive shock to see a club as big as Bristol Rovers go that far down the leagues. but they got their stuff back together and straight up from the conference, straight up from League Two, now swinging for the fences in League One, and they're up in 8th and have a realistic shot of finishing in the playoffs. Southend have been on a very slow build with Phil Brown, so to see them up in 7th is a good sign of their progression. I'm not sure they'll make the playoffs this year, but certainly a very impressive run from them. Peterborough and Millwall, bit of a mixed bag. I think they're two teams that you always look at every single time a League One campaign kicks off and thinks, well, maybe this could be their year. But then you see them in about mid-table and you think, yeah, well, okay, maybe next year. Charlton have been a big disappointment. I thought Russell Slade would go in there and shore things up. Didn't work out. Obviously, the situation at Charlton isn't ideal with the ownership and the fan reaction to said ownership. Still lots of protests going on about the chairman. I think it's Romain Dugelet, isn't it? Who also owns Standard Liège, I want to say, in Belgium.
That's right. Yeah.
Good memory on my part. They've now got Carl Robinson in charge, who is ex MK Dons. I think it's a good fit, but at the same time, I think it's kind of come at the wrong time for him because I think he's a very, very good manager. But when he got sacked at the MK Dons, of the available jobs around at the time, Charlton was the best one going. And I kind of feel like if he'd held out for a little longer, maybe he could have got a more stable club. But nonetheless, I think it's a very big club nonetheless for him to have gotten. So I'll be interested to see how they develop. They have just lost Adam Ola-Lookman, of course, though, to Everton. They did bring in Nathan Byrne on loan from Wigan today, which is, I think it's a great signing because I waxed lyrical about Nathan Byrne last season about how much I wanted him at Southampton, and it seems like no one saw the potential in him other than me, and he's slipped right down the pecking order. So maybe I was seeing something that wasn't there, or maybe I'm ahead of a curve, I don't know. But Nathan Byrne is now in League One, so hopefully he can bring a new dimension to them.
A couple of names to look out for then, for sure. And reading down the table just before the relegation spots, if we go from 13th downwards, you've got AFC Wimbledon 13th, Walsall 14th, Port Vale 15th, Northampton 16th, Gillingham 17th, and MK Dons 18th. Any sides there that are under or overachieving? I look at the likes of sort of Gillingham, Northampton, Port Vale almost slightly underachieving, I would suggest, in those positions.
Well, you'd be right, because all three of them have recently sacked their manager. I think Northampton sacked theirs today, actually. The Gillingham sacking, I can't think of who his name is now. Is it Justin Edinburgh? That rings a bell.
Justin Edinburgh, yeah.
He got sacked probably about a week ago, as of time of recording, and it was a bit of a shock because Gillingham, again, are another club that shouldn't be in League One. You know, they're still quite a League Two side. So he's doing a good job with them, but they've been on a bit of a slump and they've slid down to 17th. And I think when you look at some of the teams below them, there was kind of a feeling that they may be at risk of being caught by someone like Milton Keynes Dons and be pulled into a relegation fight. But I was still surprised to see him go. Port Vale, I can't think of the bloke's name who managed Port Vale because they're one of those clubs that just go under everyone's radar. I don't think anyone knows much about them outside of Port Vale fans. But their boss ended up getting the sack a few weeks back now, and Northampton sacked Rob Page today because of poor form. It has to be remembered that at the start of the season, I think they were about 31 games unbeaten coming up from League Two, and that has fallen away, and since then they have tumbled down the league, so that one doesn't shock me as much. The other big standout from that group is probably my favourite club in League One, which is Walsall, because not only is Jason McCarthy on loan there, who's the under-21s captain of the Southampton under-21s, ironically, but I think he's got a fantastic future, and it's nice to see him getting some consistent games. But I'm still enamoured with the fact they sold their top 8 goal scorers in the summer, or 7, I can't think of the number now, and they're still surviving. They're still up in 14th. They've still only lost 8 games. They're doing really, really well, and I think they're overachieving considering the sheer amount of player turnover. So I think Walsall deserve a bit of praise for that.
Yeah, some decent sides down there. I mean, some decent sides throughout the league, really, to be fair, but a clutch of them certainly mentioned in that roundup. And then down towards the bottom, Tactics Tim and his Swindon boys are 19th. More on that in a second. Shrewsbury 20th, Bury 21st, Chesterfield 22nd, Coventry 23rd, Oldham 24th, the last 4 of those in the bottom end of the table, or indeed the relegation spots. The 2 names that leap out at me from those clutch are Swindon and Coventry. Underachieving is not the word. I think you need a stronger word for both of those. Would that be fair?
Yeah, for definite for both of those. I would also add Milton Keynes Dons into that because they've only just come back down from the Championship. They had a really terrible start to the season, which obviously put pay to Carl Robinson which I think it's Peter Winkleman that owns MK Dons said was the toughest decision he's ever made in football to let him go. But certainly Robbie Nilsson has steadied the ship a bit there. I think he's slowly getting his feet under the desk, so hopefully they can move up. Swindon, I've kind of lost track of the Swindon story. I think Tim Sherwood is still in there as their director of football, and I think they've still got that weird relationship going on with the manager still there, but Tim Sherwood essentially being the manager but not being the manager, if you get my drift. Shrewsbury have just put in the ex-Grimsby Town boss, who I want to call Paul Hurst, but I always get him mixed up with someone else, so it might be someone else Hurst. But either way, he's in there now, and they were bottom when he walked in, and now they're out of the relegation zone, so that's a really, really great job he's doing. Bury, I think, haven't won in 15. The last time they won a game, they were second in League One, and since then they have just plummeted, and now they're in the relegation zone. Chesterfield, I think, have just sacked their manager as well. They're in the relegation zone, so it's not a massive shock. Coventry are in there because Tony Mowbray walked out on them and said, I'm on a very big wage package, I'd rather that go towards the running of the club. So he left. Russell Slade is now in there because he's a masochist apparently and loves making life as difficult as humanly possible. I don't see much hope for Coventry, but I'd like to think that at the very least they'll be able to get their finances in order so they can stave off some more serious issues than relegation. And then Oldham, really, really disappointed in Oldham. I've seen Oldham as a steady Eddie in League One for years. They were there when Southampton were there. Always near the bottom, but always surviving. And now they are rock bottom, and I'm afraid I don't see a lot of hope for them. They've got a new boss in charge who I think was the Republic of Ireland or Northern Ireland under-21s manager back in the summer. He's now gone there, and his job has just been so difficult. It's been such a long campaign for them so far, and we're only halfway through. So I worry for Oldham. I think this could be the year they finally go down.
Agreed. Okay, so that is League One at the moment. I'm not going to ask you to predict all the teams that go up and down because it would be probably a bit difficult to do. So I'm going to change the predictions for League One and League Two. I'm simply going to ask you for one club that you would keep your eye on in the second half of the season and why. So anyone in League One that you would personally like to keep an eye on?
In terms of success, I'd say Rochdale, but in terms of plain story, the one to watch is Charlton, because the current ownership, the fact that Carl Robinson's now in there, the shaky start they've had, honestly, it wouldn't shock me to see them with 10 games to go end up sacking Carl Robinson, because that's just the way the club is at the moment. But I think, again, if you're into cheeky bets, I think Rochdale are probably one for promotion.
Funny enough, you stole my thunder because Charlton were the same for me. So just to be different, I'll say Millwall. Again, another team just above Charlton that are, probably. I mean, they've been on a good run recently for unbeaten in 4 games, but the issue with their stadium is quite a big one. But I think they're the sort of club that can put a run together. I would also keep an eye on Bolton actually, because I know they're third, and that's silly to say keep an eye on, but they seem to be a club that is turning round a really dark period for them in recent years. So be good to see them coming back up. Okay, and League Two then we'll finish off with this particular look at the halfway season for League Two. Again, similar to what we did previously, we'll run through a couple of teams. Let's highlight the top 6 teams first of all. Doncaster, 4 points clear, having played a game more. At the top of the table, they're clear on Plymouth Argyle. Get on the Argyle Green Army. So they're sitting in second on 48 points. You've got Carlisle United, Portsmouth, Wickham, and Colchester, who are on a tear right now in those playoff positions. Any of those? And Barnet, you're absolutely right. Yeah, just outside the playoffs.
Annoying top 7 in League Two, which confuses everyone.
Yes, very true, very true. Good point. So Barnet also there. Any of those sort of grip your imagination slightly? To say that Colchester, the ones full of green right now, a plus 10 goal difference, 5 straight wins, and of course the mighty Plymouth. But hats off to Donny, top of the league. I mean, some big clubs up there. Pompey as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the top 4 is kind of cemented. I think that's probably going to be the same 4 clubs that are there at the end of the season, depending on which one goes first, second, third, and fourth. I think they'll be those 4 clubs still there. The rest of the playoff places are actually quite a surprise. Wickham were mid-table last season. Colchester, if I've got my timeline right, I think they came down from League One last year, and they've been all over the shop for a good number of years now of Colchester. I remember them when they were Championship, and ever since they went down, they just haven't been able to stabilise themselves really. But they've got their house in order. And Barnet, massive shock, still largely seen as a conference / bottom of the table kind of team. So to see them up in 7th is fantastic, especially after their manager Martin Allen left them for Eastleigh in the conference.
Yeah, it's a real turnaround that because Mad Dog. He is just that, a mad chap. He's bizarre that the way he sort of comes and goes from clubs. But yeah, good to see Barnet from a sort of a North London bias point of view doing so well. Going down then, Luton 8th, Cambridge 9th, Grimsby 10th, Blackpool 11th, Exeter City 12th. Stevenage 13th, Mansfield 14th. Any of those grip you? Cambridge are probably the ones, again, on the best run at the moment, unbeaten in their last 4 wins from those as well. Currently involved in an FA Cup tie. Any of those sort of stand out to you? Any over or underachievers in that batch?
I think Grimsby should be counted as an overachiever. I know I am slightly biased because I got a soft spot in my heart for Grimsby Town, but they came up from the conference after, I want to say, 6 or 7 years down there. They seem to consistently miss out by like a point or a place or a playoff final. They finally made it back up, and it's really nice to see them succeeding, especially after a change in management. I think they're now managed by Marcus Bignot, who came in from Forest Green, I want to say. And he's not done as well as Paul Hurst before him, but at the same time, he has done a very good job, carried on in much the same vein. From that clutch, Exeter City as well. Exeter City, I mean, we were worried about them going down a few months back, and now they're all the way up in 12th. So Paul Tisdale and his hat, more than safe now.
Good old Paul Tisdale and his hat and his bizarre suits. Love it. Long may it continue. And then going down again, Crawley Town 15th, Yeovil Town 16th, Morecambe 17th, Crewe 18th, Hartlepool 19th, Accrington 20th. Kind of, I don't know, there's no club really in that group that surprises me. They are where they are, if you get what I mean. Maybe Crewe slightly, and the fact that they've always had a history of producing good youngsters and whatnot is sort of shame to see them struggling quite so much as they are. But really, any argument for any of those teams being where they probably should be?
No, Crewe have just sacked their manager as well, so you could argue that there's a certain level of underachieving going on there. The only story I can pick out from there is Morecambe. It was actually this weekend. Their manager has been fined £1,000, or was fined £1,000 back in late December for a touchline incident. And the Morecambe fans all had a pass around on the weekend in their League 2 game or FA Cup game, I forget which now. And they raised the £1,000 to pay the fine. And sent him a message that said £1,000 is far too much for any one person to pay, so we all put a tenner in the hat and we've paid it off for you. So that's the kind of story I love to see from League 2, because it is that kind of division where money is very, very scarce, which is again why, as we were saying in the FA Cup podcast, I was quite annoyed at some of the reactions that Plymouth were getting for the style they played away at Liverpool. The money they get from the replay against Liverpool, I think, pays off. I thought it was 20% of their annual turnover, I think I read today. So, it's those kinds of stories from Morecambe that highlight the difference in finance between the Premier League and the lower leagues, and it's really nice to see stories like that.
Yeah, and that's a fantastic gesture. Wouldn't happen at Arsenal. I can tell you that for nothing, because it would probably just get passed around, and then there'd be a fight about who was paying for the manager to stay and who was paying for the manager to leave. So it would never happen at Arsenal. But lovely gesture. It's the sort of thing that you only see in the lower league, isn't it?
It's like, if you remember, I think it was this time last year, there was those terrible floods in Carlisle.
Yes, that's right.
And all the players banded together to help clear people's houses. They moved stadiums. It was lovely to see. League 2 is great for stories like that.
Yeah, it's also the only kind of league, or the lower down the league, it's the only time you ever get supporters taking the mick out of policemen or such like. You never see that at the top grounds, do you? It's always at the lower end of things. But there's a very famous chant. Just to share this with you, I think it's on YouTube somewhere. You can look it up. Fans of FC United of Manchester, and there's like the main stand. There's all the supporters, and a couple of bobbies on the beat walk past with the old famous, the black, the big pointy hats, and the fans sing "What a waste of council tax we paid for your effing hats," which I thought was classic. Yeah. Absolutely love that. See, again, you just wouldn't get that in the Premier League, would you? It would be more like, "Oh goodness me, these hot dogs are atrocious." Anyway, less said the better. What about the bottom four? Leyton Orient, Notts County, Cheltenham, and Newport. Some teams with some abysmal form down here. My goodness me. Between those four clubs, there's 2 wins in 20 games between them. Wow. And one of them was a draw. The rest are all defeats. 17 defeats. Wow. the two that immediately jump out at me are Leyton Orient and Notts County. Two, again, particularly Notts County, classic footballing names of yesteryear. And Leyton Orient, they've got a cool crest, but B, a club that surely they're underachieving down in 21st in League Two, aren't they?
Yeah, they've had a good series of manager turnovers as well. Again, the name of the Italian guy never actually stuck with me because he wasn't around long enough for me to remember it, but he had a good pedigree of former Serie A teams. He went in there and he's been sacked after less than, I think, 2-3 months. Notts County, they upset me as well because I remember them being in League Two because I remember that was when Sven-Goran Eriksson and Sol Campbell went in there. But they are, I think I'm right in saying they're the oldest club in English football. And it would be a real tragedy to see them drop out. At the same time, their decline has been going on for a number of years, and to see it happen wouldn't be of great shock to me. They have just sacked their manager as well. Can't think of his name now; it's completely gone. But he's been John Sheridan. That's who the manager was. He's been sacked. It's Alan Smith, formerly of Manchester United at the moment, who's there as caretaker boss. Don't think he's going to be there forever. I think they are looking for a new boss, but it's a hell of a job for whoever goes in there. Cheltenham and Newport, I think, probably going to be your bottom two unless someone can catch an off-form Notts County. But it doesn't surprise me to see either of them in there. The only big news from Newport or Cheltenham is that Newport were the first team to beat Carlisle, who were undefeated for about 20-odd games. It was rock bottom Newport that beat them.
Ouch. And yes, that Italian manager, I think you're referring to Alberto Cabasar?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, he was ex of Sampdoria, and I think it was it Brescia? I want to say Brescia. I think it was Brescia. Number of years ago. So, he wasn't around for very long, that's for sure. Okay, same question then from League One, as I'll give you for League Two. Is there a team that you look at and you go, yep, they could just make a bit of a break and end up doing some good things this season?
From mid-table, it's tough because the one that stands out to me is Exeter City. They had such a terrible start and turnaround's been so good. I wonder if they could ride a crest of a wave and maybe make a storm on the playoffs. But for me, I think the team to look for in the playoffs and indeed promotion in general, probably going to be Carlisle because they have surprised a lot of people being as high as they are. Plymouth, Doncaster, Portsmouth, they were expected to be there. Carlisle kind of crashed the party, so I'd choose Carlisle as my standout from the league so far.
Okay, well, I'll give my nudge to Barnet. I just again, this is the North London bias, I suppose, close to Arsenal and whatnot, but good things happening there, good squad they're building, and I could see them making a break, maybe even into the bottom half of the promotion places, maybe third, maybe. The one I keep an eye on is Crewe. You said it yourself, change of manager, looking at their squad, there's a lot of young players in there. They're always famous for bringing through youth. They've got quite a solid English core, or British core, I should say. There's a couple of Welsh lads and Scottish lad in there as well. But and they've got a very good young goalkeeper. I don't know if you've seen much of Ben Garrett, their goalkeeper, but he's very highly rated. I think he could be one that could make the step up in the long term.
Two other names to pick out from League Two for kids that are up and coming. Omar Bogle of Grimsby Town, who I think I'm right in saying is the top goal scorer at the moment, and Charlie Wick of Carlisle, another striker, both under intense speculation in the Championship, especially at the moment. But those are two names as well you can expect to see, at least in the Championship, in a couple of seasons' time.
Ooh, like it. I'll be honest, I haven't seen enough of League Two to be able to pick out too many players, but I will offer you a couple of Plymouth Argyle players if you want, just to be, slightly different. Craig Tanner is the obvious standout player at Plymouth. He's centre forward, 22 years of age and reliably informed. He's got 4 goals in 16 appearances. He was signed from Reading's academy team. I didn't make a senior appearance for Reading, but he's been doing very, very well. I think he's on loan, from memory. I'm sure
Wouldn't
he's
surprise me because he's a very, very good attacking player.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he is on loan, so whether they can make that a permanent deal, or, that depends on finances and whatnot, which Plymouth are not exactly blessed with right now. He's probably the stand-up player of Argyle's season at the moment. But the other one I really like, you will know this man quite well. I've always liked him. Not sure about the tattoos, but Sonny Bradley.
Sonny Bradley, yeah.
Yeah, he was at Portsmouth, wasn't he?
Yeah, it rings a bell, Sonny Bradley. I'll have to quick look, but I remember him from somewhere quite high profile.
Yeah, I'm sure it's Pompey, if I'm wrong.
Portsmouth, 13-14 season.
God for that. I only remember that because I always used to sign him on FIFA. I know that's a shocking thing to admit on a live podcast, but he's a proper old-fashioned, strong defender. It reminds me a lot of the guy. He was the guy with the big ears who played for Sheffield United, Chris Morgan. Do you remember him? Proper bruising. Oh, just a proper beastly, square-shouldered centre half. David Unsworth's another one. Reminds me of that kind of player. Just a bit of a brute, and he's been doing well at Argyle. So.
Having thought about it, Sonny Bradley, I saw him a lot actually in Portsmouth because I went to university in Portsmouth, and 13-14 was my first year down there. And I did some football work for Pure FM, and they sent me on a couple of games to go see him. The reason he was overshadowed, and I don't remember him that well, is because that was the same year that Jed Wallace broke out, and Jed Wallace was he was League Two Messi. He was brilliant, Jed Wallace. He was the reason I went to those games. But yeah, Sonny Bradley, I certainly remember the name from when I was down at Portsmouth. For the record, the two coming out of Portsmouth at the moment are Connor Chaplin, who's their striker. I think it's kind of assumed he won't be there past the summer. And Jack Watmore, who has always been touted as the Jack Wilshere lookalike. He's a centre-back, hasn't had great luck with injuries, but at the same time has always been seen as a player that should be far, far higher than League Two. But at the moment, he's kind of been hit and miss with game time, because like I say, he's been hit with some bad injuries. But another one that will hopefully, if he can continue his development, be seen a few higher divisions.
A lot of talent down there. We've seen Arsenal sign, is it Cohen Bramall from non-league this week, a young left back, and we've seen
signed someone as well from non-league.
Yes, I did see that. I didn't see the player's name, but I saw that they had gone non-league. And you look at someone like Dele Alli, of course, who's made a monumental step up from League One, which I know isn't quite the same, but it's still a hell of a jump to be playing Champions League games, albeit briefly. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. For Spurs, and there are some success stories of players that come, through the ranks and come all the way up. Jamie Vardy, of course, is the obvious one, or maybe not so good this year, but still, credit where credit's due. The season he had last season was astonishing. So there is the talent down there if you can uncover. If you can uncover them, basically, if you can find them. So
I think there's a level of having faith in them as well, because I know Liam Mandeville at Doncaster is very, very highly rated at the moment. He's got about 6 or 7 goals so far this year. He's only 19, but he's thought very highly of as well. But at the same time, is someone going to take a punt on him? That's the problem. Even Championship sides are getting a bit precious about who they put in their teams now, because it's just so important to stay in your divisions.
Yeah, it is that. It is all about money, isn't it, as well? That's the other thing. So, yes, okay, right. Well, that sort of concludes our whip through the EFL, the English Football League, and the relevant 3 divisions that we cover. We at some point, for all of you, well, I say all of you, there could be only one, there could be none, there could be hundreds, but for those of you that listen to us that are very interested or indeed follow non-league clubs, we are trying to find a non-league expert. It's very much on my things to do in 2017 book, and it's a very big, thick book, trust me. But we are working on trying to get a guest on. It wouldn't be fair on myself and Ross to sit here and talk about things that we don't know enough about. We know a vague amount, but I'll be completely honest with you. I probably know more about the French third division than I do about the non-league in England. So. It wouldn't really be fair. I think that's probably fair comment, isn't it, Ross, for us to say that? So.
I know about Eastleigh and Barrow, and that's probably where my intelligence ends with the National League.
Yeah, Torquay and Forest Green is me, and that's pretty much it. So, yeah, maybe a bit of Weymouth, a bit of Taunton Town going all the way down, but other than that, yeah, not for me. So we will work on it, and myself and Ross will put out the word if we can find an expert, or indeed if you're listening to this and you know of somebody, or you've heard somebody on another podcast that you think would be good for us, then drop us a line and we'll try and book them in. You never know. We've got Mina Rizuki before, we've got Andy Brassel before. Who knows who we might pull out? So we'll see what we can do. Okay, we're going to finish this pod with 2 cup looks, as it were. 2 cup looks? That doesn't make any sense, does it? 2 looks at 2 cups. That's better. There's the EFL Cup, which enters its semi-final stage. Ross, you will be certainly intrigued by this week's upcoming events, recording on, as we are on the 9th of January on the Monday. Southampton, Liverpool. Upcoming, and Hull City, Manchester United. I can't sit here and say to you, do you fancy a Man United Liverpool final? Because of course you don't. But putting aside your obvious loyalty, do you think that's what we'll end up with, or do you think Saints and Hull can cause what are still probably going to be upsets?
I don't think Hull have a snowball's chance in hell, unfortunately. Obviously, because my team is in the other leg, I would love to see Hull do some damage to Man United and go to the final. But they have got such a dearth of defenders at the moment. You know, they are down to the bare bones. I think it was Livermore and Huddersfield and Huddleston that were in the back line at the end of the game against Swansea. So I don't see a lot of hope for them against Man United. The Southampton one is such a complicated one because we have nothing else to play for this season. You know, this is the kind of be all and end all at this point. We have to make sure we give everything we've got to that cup. The fans want to at least get to the final. It would be a big gloss over of some of Claude Puel's shortcomings so far this season. If we could knock out Liverpool, it's going to be tough, and a lot will depend on if we can keep a clean sheet in the first leg, because I don't fancy us going away to Anfield and winning. So it's tricky for me to objectively tell you who I think is going to make the final, but from the other leg, I'm pretty sure it's going to be Man United.
Yeah, do you know what, weirdly, I suppose I would be slightly biased towards you because I like you and I like your club and I'd like you to be happy. I have a feeling you've got a decent shot over 2 legs. Tell me, the first leg, is that away or home?
It's home. I've got a ticket for it. I'm going to be going to that Wednesday night. And the thing for me is keeping the clean sheet. Just get the clean sheet, and as long as you can get a goal away at Anfield, that's the major thing. You know, I would be happy with a dire 0-0 on Wednesday if it means that we can go into that last leg and just get an away goal. Just get a goal, and then you never know.
Which is probably Southampton's biggest failing at the moment, is getting goals. I guess that's the worry. So,
and obviously we've got the issues with Font at the moment. It means Yoshida's going to be starting in the back line with Van Dijk. So I am slightly concerned that a returning Philip Coutinho could cause a bit of havoc. But again, it also depends on how much Liverpool prioritise it, because obviously they've got eyes on the league. You know, they are the team in prime position to catch Chelsea if something goes wrong with their campaign. So are they going to prioritise it? Are they going to change too much? Are they not going to change enough? It's difficult to call at this point, the Liverpool-Southampton tie.
Agreed. I think one thing we do both agree, I'm with you, certainly, for Hull fans, I'm afraid. I can't see anything but a Man United win comfortably. 2-0 over one leg, 3-0 over another leg I could see. I hope I'm wrong. It'd be nice to see these ties stay competitive, but yeah, I can't see, even under the very much enjoyable football of Marco Silva, I just can't see it happening. So who knows? Maybe we'll be wrong. We'll finish with an FA Cup draw. Because we mentioned on our last podcast, the English Breakfast FA Cup podcast, we have retweeted the draw from our Twitter accounts. If you haven't yet seen it, you're about to hear it. But if you haven't seen it and you want to look at it, it is on our timeline now. Ross, it's safe to say we've jinxed this. We both said on the podcast previously that we were hoping for a good draw with some exciting ties and, seeing some big clubs and little clubs, and it just didn't happen. So I'll run through the draw for you. Tottenham Hotspur, Wycombe Wanderers, Derby County, Leicester City, Oxford United versus Newcastle or Birmingham, Wimbledon or Sutton, AFC Wimbledon or Sutton against Cambridge or Leeds United, Plymouth or Liverpool, I should say, against Wolves, Southampton or Norwich against Arsenal. You just knew we were going to play each other again.
I'm sick of the sight of you, Arsenal. It's awful.
Almost. It happens in every bloody... We played each other twice in the League Cup recent seasons. Now it's in the FA Cup. I'm getting bored of it. Lincoln or Ipswich against Brighton Hove Albion. I think Josh will be pleased with that. Chelsea v Brentford, which is kind of a derby, isn't it? West London-ish, kind of. Manchester United, Wigan, Millwall, Watford, which is almost a derby, kind of ish. Rochdale versus Huddersfield, Burnley or Southampton against Fleetwood or Bristol City, Blackburn versus Barnsley or Blackpool, Fulham versus Hull, Middlesbrough versus Accrington Stanley, Crystal Palace or Bolton versus Manchester City. Do any of those ties interest you in the slightest? Because I've got to be honest, other than obviously my own club potentially playing your club, subject to results, not one of those ties remotely excites me.
I think there's a couple that could become exciting depending on who go through. If Lincoln knock out Ipswich, which is a big if, but if Lincoln knock out Ipswich, then Brighton Hove Albion going away to Lincoln is a big fixture. If Sutton United knock out Wimbledon, again, a very big if. And if Leeds knock out Cambridge, Sutton versus Leeds could be a big, big fixture for them. Of the guaranteed fixtures, the one that speaks to me the most is Rochdale versus Huddersfield, because that's a clash of styles, and Rochdale have got a very good home record, so I reckon they've got a good chance of going through to the fifth round on the basis of that tie. Outside of that, there's not many that I'm desperate to see. You know, I suppose you could count Wycombe Wanderers as a pretty big tie away at Tottenham, but you know, there's not many that jump out at me. Like I say, if some of those other replays go in the way I hope they do, especially Sutton Leeds, that could be huge. But of the confirmed ties, Rochdale versus Huddersfield is the one that speaks to me the most.
It's because if you actually break down the draw and you say, right, all the favourites go through, you are looking at Tottenham, Leicester, Newcastle, Leeds, Liverpool, Arsenal, Brighton, Chelsea, Man United, Watford, Huddersfield, Sunderland, Burnley. That's a pick 'em. Blackburn, Hull, Middlesbrough, Man City. It's not exactly. I just don't see where the upsets are coming in any of these ties. Weirdly, probably the one that does jump out at me as a potential upset is if Southampton beat Norwich. I could see you dumping us out. So, you know, one of those, isn't it?
Well, again, I think the FA Cup relationship will depend entirely on how we do in the League Cup this weekend. If we look like we're out of that, because I think the replay with Norwich is this time next week, if we have a particularly bad game in midweek, then I think we may end up prioritising the FA Cup.
Yeah, agreed. I can't see any of the other big boys going out. I think United will comfortably win. I think Chelsea comfortably beat Brentford. Spurs comfortably beat Wycombe for me. I think Liverpool, I think arguably the toughest tie they've got is the Plymouth tie rather than the Wolves tie, personally. And I can't... Bolton or Palace, Man City... You know, it's one of those, isn't it? City away from home, but they didn't have any trouble at West Ham, did they? So, yeah, can't really see any upsets there. So, sorry, everybody. We promised you riches and we gave you buttons. So, you know, it is what it is. The FA Cup, has it lost its magic? Well, the attendances for those games will probably tell us all we need to hear, unfortunately. But, hey-ho, somebody's got to win it at the end of the day. And, you know, what better way to... enjoy the FA Cup than one of our teams winning it, of course. That'd be nice. But other than that, nothing exciting. Shame. Never mind. Okay, so I think we'll draw a line there, Ross. There's not much more we can go into. We obviously, if you do have questions that you want to ask us, please do feel free to email or direct message or tweet the podcast account. We will do our best to get them answered. If we haven't featured your club enough on this podcast, if you follow a club that we haven't featured, let us know, and we'll do our best to feature them. And of course, as we always say on this pod, we're always keen to hear from supporters of clubs that are lower down out of the Premier League, and obviously our friend Jake is a Villa fan who writes blogs for us. We've got a couple of people at Twitter. I think we've got a couple of Brentford fans from memory that follow us. You know, there's a few dotted around, a couple of Newcastle fans as well. But yeah, if your club isn't getting a mention and you want us to give it a mention, then drop us a tweet, and we'll do our very best to get you mentioned on the pod. Right, Ross. Well, we'll make a note of our predictions. Your homework is to listen back to at least the predictions from our podcast at the start of the season, and see how, and indeed the one from last season, and see how spectacularly wrong or right we might have been. So that's your homework. And we've got. We had a request. Maybe we should finish with this, actually. We had a request, didn't we, for teams from, I think it was from Noma, for our teams of the championship, wasn't it?
Yes, I should really go and get my graphics, shouldn't I?
I think I've got it here if you want me to read it to you.
Oh, well, there you go. You've beaten me to the punch.
As if by magic. We'll save the Premier League one for later, because that was that you that picked that?
That was Josh's. I did championship.
You did, good. Okay, so we'll let Josh do his Premier League team of 2016 on the next English Breakfast on Sunday. But your Championship team of 2016, so it's not of the season, it's of 2016, remember.
And that's a very important distinction for the record.
Absolutely, looking at this lineup, it really is, particularly after the weekend's action. So you went with manager Chris Hughton, of course, of Brighton. You went in a 3-4-3 formation. You went Ali Al-Habsi in goal. Again, 2016, not last weekend, people listening to this. Charlie Taylor, I think I'm right in saying, of Leeds. Chris Gunter, a cracking season for him, or cracking year for him with Wales as well, and Lewis Dunk as your centre backs, if you will. Thomas Ince and Cherry, who just left QPR, didn't he, to go to China?
He's on his way to China for £4 million.
He's off. Conor Hurahan, we mentioned in depth on the pod tonight for Barnsley, and Moy. Is it Ryan Moy?
Oh, I can't remember his first name now. It's definitely Moy. I know the spelling puts people off because it looks like Mooey, but it's Moy. I can't think if it's Ryan or not now.
Oh, I must look it up because otherwise this will cause lots of controversy if we don't get this right. So, it is the Huddersfield Aaron Moy, of course. It is Aaron Moy of Huddersfield Town. Sorry, yes, good, nearly right with Ryan ish. And then your front three: Big Tony K, Anthony Knockhart. He had to be in, didn't he? Podcast favourite. Hogan, I presume that's Scott Hogan of Brentford.
Yeah.
Good, who's been linked with West Ham, interestingly. How is that Lacazette deal working out for you, West Ham? Anyway, and Fernando Forestieri of Sheffield Wednesday, again, one who's dividing opinion right now with the Owls fans. So there you go. Any of those that you had an and ah over that you could have put others in, or are you happy with that lineup?
Oh, there was plenty, because like I said, the thing was, it was important to make sure it was 2016 and not half of the season, because Andre Gray was fantastic for Burnley in their promotion push. Gaston Ramirez was brilliant at the end of Middlesbrough's promotion push at the start of the season. And then you get into this year and you've got Dwight Gale who's tearing it up. Really, really difficult to make sure that the right players went in. But I think on the balance of how 2016 has gone, I think they're probably as good as I could get. So, yeah, I was pretty happy by the time I finished it.
I think you've done well because I know John and Drew have still got to do their teams from Germany and Italy. I'm trying to do a Liga French one. I think at last count I had 32 players.
Oh.
So
you've got a squad, haven't you?
I have. I've got a club. I don't know about squad. I've got a full club. I think I had 8 forwards that I couldn't decide between. So, and it's so difficult, like you say, you've got to think back to the end of last season, and arguably the Euros has to be taken into consideration as well. So, it's not easy to pick a team. So, well done to you. And as I say, Josh will give us his Premier League 11 of 2016 on the next English Breakfast, probably this Sunday coming. So, listen out for that. Right, okay, that will do us then for this EFL special. As we say, the European regular podcast should be returning this, or I say this, depends when you're listening to this, but very soon in the next couple of weeks or the next week, depending when you're listening. And we are still planning to do a live pod. At some point, the listeners said they were keen on that idea. So when we get a bit of free time and we can get our diaries in sync, that is very much in the works. So look out for that. Ross, where can people find you, should they wish? Both your Twitter handle and you do some writing, which you don't ever get enough credit for. So where can people find you and your work?
If you're interested in reading some of my writing, then you can find me on Outside of the Boot. As soon as I've got an idea for a blog for the Football Hipsters, I am definitely going to sit down and write one, but I seem to be struggling for ideas for you guys. But you can also find me at Ross Bramble on Twitter. I very rarely tweet, and if I do, it's just about Southampton. But, if you're interested, you can find me there.
Or about Fulham, of course.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes, please do, and if you've got any ideas for guests or people that you think would be a good fit for me and Ross, then drop us a line. Or indeed, if you own a headset and a good internet connection, which is ironic given the problems I had before we started recording this podcast tonight. Grr, Sky, thank you. Yes, if you know of somebody who follows a team or yourself that you fancy joining us for a little segment, drop us a line. We'll see what we can do. No promises, but it's worth a try, isn't it? Right, okay, thank you, Ross. And of course, I should say thank you to Josh, who has departed earlier on in the podcast, for his inclusion as well. Really appreciate your time this evening, so thank you very much.
Pleasure as ever.
And keep tweeting us, keep interacting with us. Drop us a line on YouTube. You can leave your comments there. Drop us a review on iTunes. Our thanks to Noma, actually, who's just done that very thing. So thank you, Noma. And of course, drop us a tweet or an email at the FH Podcast on Twitter or footballhipsterspodcast@gmail.com. So thank you very much for tuning in. Keep enjoying your EFL action. And once again, we've been the Football Hipsters, and we'll speak to you very soon.